Fox News alert: Israel is under attack from Iran after taking out their nuke sites and top military leaders. For what this means for the U.S. and our troops overseas in the Middle East, let's go right to Jennifer Griffin live from the Pentagon. Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, Greg. Well, U.S. officials who I've spoken to here at the Pentagon tell me that both U.S. Navy and U.S. Army assets were used to help track and shoot down incoming Iranian missiles. However, the U.S. does not want to appear to be involved in this direct conflict between Israel and Iran. The president would like for Iran to come back to the negotiating table. As we speak, CENTCOM is moving more air and naval assets into the region. U.S. Navy officials tell us U.S. Navy assets have been used to protect Israel and the hundreds of thousands of Americans living there. The USS Thomas Hudner, a guided missile destroyer, is moving from the western Mediterranean to the eastern Med near Israel, joining the USS Sullivans and the USS Arleigh Burke, which are already in position off the coast of Israel. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson learned that the U.S. Army had employed the THAAD missile defense system, which can shoot down an incoming ballistic missile from 120 miles out, and the Patriot PAC-3 battery, which has each of those has about 100 U.S. soldiers manning them inside Israel tonight. The U.S. sent one THAAD battery in October of last year and another in April, 2 of the 7 in the Army's arsenal. The U.S. has one aircraft carrier strike group in the Middle East right now, the USS Carl Vinson in the Arabian Sea off the coast of Oman, where those Iran nuclear talks were supposed to take place on Sunday. Now, many Iranian leaders who were supposed to participate in those talks are dead, killed in Israeli strikes. A senior Israeli security source told me last night Iran had accumulated large amounts of highly enriched uranium sufficient for more than 9 nuclear bombs. 1/3 of that was enriched and accumulated in the last 3 months alone.
No way.
While those negotiations were taking place. That's why Israel decided to act. The International Atomic Energy Agency said tonight that the above-ground Natanz uranium enrichment facility was destroyed in the Israeli airstrikes overnight. Greg?
Thanks, Jennifer. In the meantime, Kamala's failed Veep, Tim Walz, now suggesting that Communist China might be the voice of moral authority following Israel's strikes on Iran.
Now, who is the voice in the world that can negotiate some type of agreement in this? Who holds the moral authority? Who holds the ability to do that? Because we are not seen as a neutral actor. Now I ask who that is. And I mean, consistently over and over again, we're going to have to face the reality. It might be the Chinese.
So, Charlie, if you wanted to do a deep fake to make Tim Walz look like a complete jackass, you couldn't even beat that.
No, you really couldn't.
No, he has a background with China.
Yeah.
So this is like, I mean, what's going on here?
It's so funny you said that, because when I saw it on like Twitter, and the first thing I did when I saw it was I went back and looked. I was like, well, obviously this is not real. And then finally I got back to C-SPAN, and I was like, well, C-SPAN's not shipping around deep fakes. So, but it is, no, it's beyond absurdity. And this is the standard bearer that Democrats just 6 months ago had picked out of nowhere. You could have picked anybody, but they picked this guy.
Yeah, that is unbelievable.
I really do think that it's sort of, it's a reminder of where we are, big picture. You have decades of, Barack Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize before he even became president in 2008. He wasn't even inaugurated yet, and he was granted the Nobel Peace Prize, in part because they thought he was going to solve the Middle East. These problems are problems that we've been talking about forever. They've been intractable forever, and nobody has ever, we've just sort of resigned ourselves to thinking that nothing will ever move over there. And then you take Don from Queens, who comes at it from a completely different perspective, understanding human nature, and applies all the parts and applies all the pressures, and then suddenly things begin to break loose. And it does make you kind of wonder if Trump had not had his interregnum, his interruptus.
Good word.
Would we not even be talking about this right now? Would Saudi Arabia and Israel and all of its neighbors already be living in peace and trading mercantile goods instead of missiles?
Good point. Jessica, may I operate an analogy?
I think so. I'm a little afraid, but...
Imagine the Democrat Party is a face. And Tim Walz is like a cold sore that goes away for a few weeks and it keeps coming back. And every time it comes back, it's more inflamed. It's more inflamed. What would you do to get rid of this cold sore that seems to be just
The hand is a lot.
Yes. You guys need some industrial political strength Valtrex.
I was going to say.
Guys, I'm going to show you the rest of this clip, but I wanted to pause real quick and ask guys, if you don't mind, do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up, like button. Tim Walz, it's unbelievable what he's saying, that somehow the Chinese are the moral authority. I want to show you the rest of this clip, guys, but I got to stop and weigh in here. That's the point we've gotten where we are putting the Communist Chinese Party as the voice of reason and moral authority in the world. That's how far, guys, the Democratic Party, they've really slid into a very dangerous area. This is the beginnings of totalitarianism here in the U.S. on the left. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Guys, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Join the community. Let's finish this video clip, guys. I got to see what else they say about Tim Walz, because imagine this guy was vice president right now.
I didn't want to make it seem like I knew too much about this because I don't have herpes simplex A. But now that you've said Valtrex, that is the solution. I, too, thought maybe I was being punked. And I know Tim Walz doesn't care about me much, but he should have known that I was going to have to show up at work today and talk about this clip. There are so many good ways to talk about mistakes Donald Trump has made without saying that the Chinese are the arbiters of good principles or whatever the exact phraseology was. Like, Donald Trump's proposed Iran nuclear deal part 2 is the same one that he ripped up. If you want to say, oh, Iran's been enriching uranium at this fast pace, well, go figure, it's because we ripped up the nuclear deal. Make that case if you want to. You can talk about any number of things, but you don't need to talk about that. And it's a big point of frustration. We don't have to be reflexively against everything. You pick and choose your spots and you make a cogent case. And I think that you can do that quite effectively. But when you dismiss things like the Abraham Accords, and I know that he's going for the Abraham Accords part 2 and thinks that he'll have extra nations that will sign on, and that's what might be his best chance at getting the Peace Prize, I think you need to say yay to this and nay to that, so you seem like a normal human being, and then people will consider us to be president again in
Seem like a normal human
That is
being.
a high bar to
Seem
expect
like
Tim
one.
Walz to be a normal human being. Bartha, what is the Chinese piece to this? Why did he bring it up? I don't understand this. And we know he went to China many times, and he's involved in some kind.
Tiananmen Tim, as Jesse would say
Yes,
if he was
exactly.
here.
So he knows it really well, Greg. It's obvious. He's a China expert. And that's why. No, but I kept thinking as all of this was unfolding about the only two people who might be sitting around the globe going, we're this kind of axis of evil, Russia and Iran and China, and you see Russia reaching out, well, I can come up with some sort of deal, just get me in there and I'll fix it, just like I did with Ukraine and my own country. But China stays very mum. So I don't think China's going to be the moral authority, because when they're in this situation, they like to sit back and just sort of whistle a little bit, because they're not going to get in the middle of this whole thing. But what I find fascinating is that, with regard to the Iran deal, Jessica, I think this Iran deal was not the old Iran deal, because this Iran deal had verifiable anytime, anywhere inspections. They didn't want that. This Iran deal had restrictions on ballistic missiles, which we know they like very much. We've seen them using them all day today. So they did not want this deal. And Trump kept saying to them, super simple. All you have to do is sign on the dotted line. I will never have a nuclear weapon.
The
and
bill.
we'll know if you do, because we're going to be in your facilities whenever we want to. They could not. Humiliation is a huge factor in Iran right now. They have, as I said before, zero economy. Their currency has crashed. They have about half the population living in poverty, and they have a huge significant part of the population who wants the leadership gone.
Yes, guys, that right there, don't miss it. That's why Elon and a lot of people are pushing for the Iranian people to rise up and overthrow their government right now, because that's the only way Iran survives this. because there's a lot of pride involved, and the leaders of Iran are not going to sign a deal. They're not going to surrender here. So the only way this is a win for Iran is if the Iranians rise up, overthrow their government, which is the big push, I think, right now.
They are desperate at this point. So the only thing they have was the threat of nuclear weapons and chanting death to America every 5 minutes. Everybody else in the neighborhood wants them gone, toppled. And so this is a unique moment. And Israel recognized it. And I think President Trump, even though he does not like war and doesn't want this to turn into a war, understood the importance of the moment.
Last word, Katie. Do you know what's going on with him in China?
Well, I would say that although the Iranians have been humiliated over the last 24 hours, then you trot out Tim Walz and have him talk about this serious situation and bring up something weird like China. Tim Walz wants to be president. He wants to be the commander in chief. And over the past 24 hours, what this has actually highlighted is that we don't have really any kind of drone protection here in the United States. And China has purchased a lot of farmland in this country. China has tried to smuggle in agricultural bioweapons to disrupt the crops in this country. There are spies all over our university system. And yet you have Tim Walz, who, instead of taking a step and saying, why is it that we lost the 2024 election because we were so insane and out of touch with reality and the threats that face the country, he then throws the United States under the bus and says that China is the one who should be negotiating these things, even though they also have been enemies of the United States. So he's not a serious person. We have very serious issues with China, and yet he thinks that they should be dealing with the situation. And no one thinks that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris could handle this better. No one.
You all got the question wrong. He's a communist.
Well, that's true. But.
Dwight, this.
Before we jump into this, guys, if you're tired of watching American strength be undermined by weak leadership and globalist nonsense, do me a big favor, guys. Smash that like button, that thumbs up like button. It helps get this video in front of more patriots just like you. Now, Israel just leveled Iran's above-ground nuclear facility at Natanz. Not might have. They did it. They actually did it. This is something we've been talking about, guys, for a long time. Why? Because Iran had stockpiled enough enriched uranium for over 9. When I heard that number, that blew my mind. 9 nuclear bombs. And a third of that was made in just the last 3 months, guys. So they were really starting to escalate their time frame. Now, here's the part you're not going to hear enough about. The U.S. helped a lot. Pentagon sources confirmed that U.S. Navy destroyers like the USS Thomas Hudner were moved into place. THAAD and Patriot missile systems were used to track and shoot down Iranian retaliation. Now, Donald Trump is really trying hard to stay out of this conflict and at the same time support our ally Israel. And I think he's really trying to live out that America first idea here and principle here of trying to kind of stay out of this conflict as much as he can, but at the same time, we are supporting. We did help. And just when you think it can't get any more insane, Tim Walz, Democrat, failed VP pick, goes on national television and says that China might be the moral authority in all of this. Let me say that again, guys. A U.S. elected official says that communist China should lead peace talks after Israel is attacked. This is a regime that jailed Christians, commits genocide, spies on us through farmland and universities, threatens Taiwan, poisons our country with fentanyl, and Democrats think that they are the grown-ups in the room? You got to ask yourself, guys, what kind of leader turns their back on Israel and hands the steering wheel to Chinese Communist Party? You can't blame people for asking if these guys are just incompetent or if they're working from a completely different playbook. And then they pretend like Trump's pressure on Iran didn't work. That man got the Abraham Accords signed while the left was handing out Nobel Peace Prizes to Barack Obama before he even took office. Trump applied pressure, and it worked. Iran was backed into a corner, and now with new enrichment efforts exposed, Israel made a move that arguably saved the region from nuclear disaster. And what's the Democratic response? The Democrat response: praise China and throw America under the bus, guys, we got to listen. We got to wake up. We got to understand. And I hope some of our liberal leftist friends will start to see the lies, guys, the fabric of lies that's behind all this. They say America can't be trusted. They say we're not neutral. Well, guess what? We're not supposed to be neutral. We're supposed to stand for freedom. We're supposed to stand with strength. We're supposed to stand with our allies, not our enemies. This isn't complicated, guys. Very, very simple. You don't need a geopolitical degree to know that you don't side with Iran or China over Israel and America. Let me know that in the comments, guys, because maybe I'm missing something here. Do you think that we're doing enough to stand with Israel right now in this very important moment? Again, this is something we've been talking about for decades. Do you trust China to play the peacemaker? Guys, let me know down in the comments what you're thinking about all this, because this is absolutely blowing my mind. Subscribe, guys, if you want truth, not propaganda, because that's what we're bringing, guys. And if you want to go a step further, become a member to help support this channel, guys. Every bit helps us keep fighting for truth. We're fighting for faith. We're fighting for freedom. Guys, this is Nolan Alders. Stay loud, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next one.